to Connect. I am your host, Andy Hale. I've got a good friend with me today, Dawn Alexander. Full disclosure, she is, I'm a client, I guess, of Bell and Ivy, where Dawn works. She's does a lot of work with all my social media. So everybody who likes my social media, Dawn's the genius behind that. But I was talking to Dawn about, kind of my spiritual journey, and that led to further discussions. And I want to get into that today with Dawn. So Dawn, welcome to Connect.
Hi, Andy. Thanks for having me.
So let me start out.
Yeah.
Would you consider yourself a spiritual person in general?
Yeah, I think, if someone just asked me that question, like, yes, my gut reaction is be like, yes, spiritual. But then I would probably follow up with more questions for them, like, well, what does spirituality mean? Because I feel like that's so broad, right?
It's a very broad term. And even
To me,
though I think I considered myself spiritual, I had never heard of you. So on Connect, people know I've had, I think, 3 separate episodes with Jessica Rachel, the spiritual medium. Before I met Jessica, I'd never heard of a spiritual medium. I'd never heard of the concept of a spirit guide. Had you heard of either of those before?
yeah, I definitely have. Definitely, I think probably living in LA too, you just, it's really
Yeah,
common.
yeah, right.
It's kind of the like funny,
Oh, it's like you haven't heard of it in LA? It's like
yeah,
you're the
exactly.
minority.
Yeah, it's like everyone knows about astrology, and people know about that stuff everywhere, but I feel like LA has the rep for like you got a lot of the woo-woos here.
Yeah,
And so
let's pause a second. I wonder
yeah,
why that is. It's like
I
and I
don't know.
mean this. I think LA is it's and this is what I love about LA. I think it's a lot of dreamers
Yep.
and people that follow their passion. But I guess, is that somehow linked to spirituality?
Probably. I guess it's just because it's a city that you get all types. So it's like if you're gonna have that, you're gonna find that type here, Or I don't know if it's linked to like surf culture too, like catch the waves and be like hippie like. I don't know.
Well, I do think, to the extent spirituality encourages you to sort of follow your passion, and
Yeah.
it might be the road less traveled. I think, like in Chicago, I look at Chicago like, man, we're a city of grinders. We are taught you got to grind, you got to work hard, 9 to 5, 9 to 6, 9 to 7, and grind it out. And then,
Yeah.
take the 7:20 train for 40 straight years.
Yeah.
LA, it's like, no, 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 no. I'm going to sit
Yeah.
at Starbucks with my notepad, and I'm going to manifest
Yeah.
something, the more purposeful life, and I'm not going to work like
Right.
that. And so I do think the dreamer type, and I mean that in the most endearing
Yeah.
way,
No, totally.
are spiritual. Because like in Chicago, none of my friends would have we've never talked about spirit
Yeah.
guides or spiritual
I
mediums.
think
And this is the thing about spirit guide. I mean, I had heard of like psychics. I had heard of like people that can connect with, let's say, deceased spirits. But was what I had never heard before meeting Jessica was, and I think this is so different,
mm,
the concept that a spirit guide, we all have a spirit guide assigned to us, one or more, that basically are like our spiritual life coach, that are
mhm.
with us every day, trying to guide us and lead us so we can have the most purposeful, aligned life that we were intended to have.
Yeah.
And so I had never, to me, that is,
Hmm.
when you hear what Jessica said, that is such a game changer to me,
Yeah.
that if you believe that's true, and I do, I mean, I Jessica has resonated with me, as people know. Um, if it's true, think of the power that every person can tap into their spirit guide. So before you met Jessica, had you thought that you had your own personal spirit guide?
So yeah, it's interesting as you were talking, just to back up about like being in LA and it being about dreamers and it's true. And I do think that's probably why it is something that either it's huge here or people just know about it because it is a city where people come to make their dreams come true. And then, if you are that type of personality, you're either more open to that yourself, or you're definitely meeting people who are into that. Which brings me to the next kind of thought that came to my head when you were saying that, is that I think, and I wonder if the idea of spirit guide is also, it can be the easy thing to believe in or not so easy to believe in, because it kind of correlates with spirituality and belief in God in some way, because I feel like people need to know something's out there for them and feel something's out there for them. And I feel like, the concept of a spirit guide is very intriguing and necessary for some people, especially dreamers and people who are like trying to do something. So it's not so far-fetched if you're already somebody who's like either has faith or just is like believes in the universe. There's always this thing in the back of your head like, someone's got my back, right? So I feel like, for me, so to answer your question, I have always had that feeling like someone's got my back, right? Like, whether it's, God or the universe or whatever you believe in, there was always this overwhelming or over encompassing feeling like I'm not just me, just out here. Like I always feel like something's out there, but I didn't never personally recognize it as a spirit guide. So when I had my meeting with Jessica, it was really interesting because she didn't tap into a spirit guide traditionally for me, which I found interesting.
We're going to get into that.
Yeah.
I just think I'm surprised the topic is not more mainstream, meaning whether you believe or not, I'm just surprised it's not a conversation that you're hearing about frequently, where, some people believe it, some people don't believe it, because to me, if it's such a powerful, life-changing experience for people to tap into that. And I've always believed, I always felt like I had intuition. I always felt like follow your gut. I always felt like, their universe as a little kid. I mean, I can remember being in third grade. I got the book in the other room. I should go get it. I got this on my desk, this book, Stars.
Oh,
because
okay.
I use it, it's inspiration to me. I surround myself in my office with things that inspire me. And inside, what it says is Andy Hale, room 16, Miss Thomas's class.
Look at
In
that. You
third
wrote that.
grade, I was in third grade living in St. Petersburg, Florida.
Wow.
And we would lay on the front lawn, my parents and my sisters and I, look up at the stars. Back in third grade, I annoyed my sisters so much because I knew, like, do you know how far Pluto is from the moon? Or do you know how far, Uranus is? Like, I was this annoying little kid with stats, but I always had this fascination when you look up at the sky
Yeah.
and you see all the stars and you just think, like, it's just
Yeah.
us. That's kind of hard to
Yeah.
believe,
Yeah.
And in fact, I'll give you another example. TikTok is such an amazing wealth of interesting content. I somehow, it kind of guides you for what you're interested in. So I was
Right.
getting a lot of these, spiritual manifestation type videos. And I got one where a guy was talking about the speed of light. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
And I'll send you this TikTok because I sent it around to some people. It's hard to picture the light having a speed, but it said like the speed of light, whatever it travels at, it could get to the moon in like 1.3 seconds, the speed of light. It could get to the sun in 8 minutes, I think it was. But to get out of our galaxy would take like 200 million years or something like
Yeah.
that. And to get to the next galaxy would take something even more than that at the speed of light. So think of how big that is,
Yeah.
and trillions of stars. And then you think, but the only place is here on this little old tiny,
Yeah.
like, but anyway, so I digress. So I'm so fascinated by, the concept of a spirit guide and what it means. And so I had mentioned Jessica Rachel to you,
Mhm.
and you agreed. I think you were excited to do a session with her.
Yeah.
So I want to talk a little bit about that. You went
Sure.
into it.
I have my
Did you go into it
notes.
with any kind of expectations?
No, because I guess I've done reading similar to this before, and I guess I had no real expectations because I wasn't quite sure what to get from a spirit guide, because a lot of times, either it's a psychic or someone reading a tarot card. So I had a mental space for that. I already knew what that was. I could ask like actual like, will I be rich? Or, your stereotypical like psychic type questions. Who will I marry? Like, how many kids will I have? Like those things. Um, so I kind of was a little bit like, I felt like Jessica was like, she was like, do you have any more questions? Because I felt like I couldn't, this is probably just self-imposed. I felt like I couldn't ask those more simple questions because I'm like, this is a spirit guide thing though. It's not like your typical psychic prediction type stuff. So I think I struggled a bit in the beginning just to find my footing of even how to approach the reading. So I kind of let Jessica just okay, you tell me like what's going on,
Yeah,
what do I
that's
have
what
to do?
I like to do at the start. I'm always like, what does the spirit guide want to tell me?
Right, right.
You know, like, what are they
But
trying to tell me?
that was what was interesting because the first we start and immediately she's like, huh, this is not really a spirit guide. This is more of a past life me, which then just sent me to like, I was like, wait, what is going on?
So that's so interesting because I've talked to her a lot, and I've talked to a lot of people that have had sessions with her,
Yeah,
and I even know from my experience with her, you know, she always just talks about a particular spirit guide. Now you could have one, you could have more than one, but for you, was she basically communicating with a past life version of you?
yeah. I tried to go back and listen because I feel like we kind of went back and forth a little bit because I don't think she was 100% sure whether it was a past life me or my spirit guide um coming to me that way. But it definitely seemed like that was her first instinct. Like, this is a past version of you who was a slave.
A
So I was,
slave?
yes. So I was definitely like,
Oh
so I
God.
already was going into this like, oh, I don't know what to expect. And then I was really just like, okay, I got to reposition my mental space here because I was not
Wow.
expecting any of this. And she seemed a little surprised too, which was funny.
Did
So,
did 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 you get, because I think when somebody does a session, at least, I think the main goal is if you can just get one nugget of advice, it might
yeah,
be, hey, Dawn, you're working too much. You got to delegate. You need to hire an
yeah,
assistant, or, you're in an unhealthy relationship, or it sounds like you're unhappy with your job, or, whatever it might be. Did
yeah.
you get any kind of little nugget of advice from whoever it was that Jessica was communicating with?
It seemed like, I mean, it sounded my overall. How do I say this? I guess what I was left with overall was kind of just keep plugging away as I am. Like, there was not anything that I wasn't already doing that didn't seem like I was already on that path in a way. So, which sounds okay, may sound disappointing, but on the other hand, later in the conversation, I asked her, like, has there been a time where my spirit guides tried to reach out to me or like that I needed them and she said, no, you always seem to kind of get it. You, you seem to pick up on it. They don't really need, you never had to hit rock bottom. So
Hmm.
I'm like, kind of made sense. Like, I'm like, wow, maybe I'm just really intuitive into
Well, that could
my,
be. Let me ask you this. How would you describe your current, your job at Bell and Ivy? What would your job description be?
I mean, well, my actual job description is content manager, creator, and copywriter. So it's kind of just saying that right there just tells you kind of how my reading went. I'm a little bit of everything.
But the thing about it is, knowing you, I also know how you've got this big passion for baking.
Yes,
Okay.
yes. That
So did you in your session volunteer any interest in baking, or did baking come up
I
organically?
it did, yeah, it did and didn't. So I did mention to her, and I was trying not, I was trying to hold back because I wanted to
Right.
see, let the spirit guide say something. But, like I said, I think I was also not saying enough. So Jessica was asking me more things. So I said, hi, all right, I do a lot of things and baking is one of them. So she did bring up the baking but she was focusing more on desserts And also the person, my past life person, also was a dessert maker, um, and a cook, which I'm not like a cook, but apparently my past life slash spirit guide person was a jack of all trades, such as myself now.
Hmm.
So that was interesting. But yeah, she did bring up the desserts part. I mean, like I said baking, but she told me to focus on desserts and
Did
find a
that
safe
did that
dessert.
did that resonate with you or not? Did you feel like,
Yes and no, because it is kind of what I am doing. I guess that's why the reading was so interesting, because I felt like I know with your readings, I've from your episodes and other people's episodes, there's been like a lot of those aha moments, or like there was something, and I didn't really have that. It felt really like we were already talking about the things that are in play, which doesn't, it's not a good or bad thing. It just, I just felt like, oh, so just keep doing. Oh yes, that makes sense. I'm doing that already. Or like, yeah, that's you know what I mean? There was no like,
yeah,
you should do this, you know? It was kind of
yeah,
like keep, well, actually, I'll take that back. She did say one interesting thing that was, I was like, oh, that doesn't sound like me at all. But not that it doesn't sound like me, but she said I would be writing a fictional book. Yeah.
really?
Yeah. And so here's another interesting thing, Andy. So we talked about Chip, who is my boyfriend. And she was saying, because I asked about him, and she was saying things about him that sounded more like me, and things about me that sounded more like him.
Really? Well, maybe I wonder if she's like, just getting both and kind of, you know.
Yes and no, because so the fictional book thing was one thing, because I was like, well, that's interesting, because I'm more of like a blogger, and I do the content creation, and I have written some like blog type things creatively. But she was saying Chip should be doing that. And then he's the fictional writer. He's written a novel and all this stuff. And
Really?
yes. And so I was like, this is weird.
Oh,
But also, one thing that I will say, maybe this has been like the little bit of the aha thing, is that she started saying, oh, Chip should be doing social media and all stuff. And I just started laughing, because anybody who knows Chip knows he hates social media. He hates the idea of it. He hates the concept. He hates what it's, doing to society. He can't stand it.
interesting.
But in these last few months, we've been working on projects, and he is fully dove into the world of like figuring out the algorithms and like making content and like all this. So
He
I said
might
to
be
him, I
helping me
go,
with some of my stuff.
well, I know, but like it's just, I said, babe, I've said it's pretty interesting, because you are really like diving into this social media world. And so it's like kind of just happening. So I did find that interesting.
Huh.
But when she first said it, I was like, oh, no way. I'm like, this is not him.
So let me ask you this. I'm always interested in, I have my own opinions, and I look at it this way. So what Jessica says is she's clairvoyant,
Mm-hmm.
and she basically can see like your spirit guy, like with me, like, she told me I was a star seed, meaning my
Yeah.
spirit guy was like basically like an alien looking
Mm-hmm.
being, and that she can see this, person, I guess you would say, or spirit. And then, she sees images and things and can communicate with your spirit guide.
Yeah.
Okay. So I look at it this way. I mean, I look at it this way. I think it's really only one of two things.
Mm-hmm.
It's she's making it all up, and
Right.
she's just incredibly good at making it all up, and it's all just kind of a hoax. She's not seeing anything, or it's true. She's
Right.
seen it. She's telling you what she's seen, and then she's just telling you what she's seen. So
Yeah.
my experience with her, and I've talked to her many times, and I've had several sessions. There has never been an ounce of my being where I felt like she was just making it up.
Yeah.
Like the conversation just flows for an hour and a half. And there'll be times when it's like, I'll be talking. She's like, wait, hold on. Your spirit guy wants to tell you something. He's got
Yeah.
3 points, 1, 2, 3, or like obscure things. Like it's never just like, yeah,
Yeah.
your spirit
Yeah.
guide says, that you're you're a good person, and like it
Yeah.
it
Yeah.
seems so authentic to me. What and again, I want you to just be honest, because
Yeah.
what was your take of her?
So my take of her is, yeah, definitely that. I never felt that this person's not, authentic in what they're doing or what they, whether it's true or not, whether they are trying, I definitely felt like the experience was authentic. My thing is, because I do believe I'm open to everything. I believe people have intuition. I believe I have my own like intuitions and have had my own premonitions. I believe we all have different levels of connections and access to what's out there. So my overall, if I'm being honest, I sometimes, especially based off of my reading, I sometimes think that people are tapping into you, that it might not be, a spirit guide or something else. It might just be an actual connection that her and I are having, and she's tapping into me, my thoughts, my
Yeah.
whatever you want to call that. Sometimes I think that's what it could be. I don't know. I'm
Well,
just,
I think that's
you
interesting.
know,
I mean, really, it's kind of the same thing. Like
right. It's still something
it's
that is
tapping
a
into
gift.
you,
Yeah.
and maybe she calls it your inside is your spirit guide, but it's you, you know?
Right. And so I'm open to those and I feel like that's kind of where I'm left with that, because especially again from my reading, because it wasn't like, oh, here's your spirit guide. It's like this angel that's always flying over your head. It was like, oh, a past life me. Interesting, because now I have to believe that there's past lives and I have to get on board with that, or and also think that I can connect to somebody that's past, but I'm here now. So that's interesting. So there's a lot of like, oh, like let me reassess this and try to wrap my head around it, because again, like it wasn't a psychic where it's like, oh, here's my crystal ball, here's the future, and it wasn't something that's removed from me like an angel or spirit guide. It was supposed to be me
Yeah.
in another time and space. So my brain kind of is still wrapping around that, and my conclusion kind of is like, I feel like we were just exchanging some energies, and she's tapping into things about me and my life. And maybe there's some predictive elements, and there's, again, I feel like we have a lot of definitions like clairvoyant and claircognizant and all this stuff. I'm no expert on any of it, but I feel like it's still all very confusing to all of us at the end of the
Well, and
day.
I think,
It
I
could be
mean,
so
no
many
matter what
things.
you call it, what she'll say is we all have the power to kind of connect, and you can get better at it through practice. And I do think that everybody could improve their lives by being more, let's just say, intuitive.
Yeah, I agree with
Call it what you want, put whatever label on it what you want. But I kind of look at it like um, I'm very much aware of everything being an opportunity, everything that comes my way. I look at it with a mindset of like, oh, this is interesting. Even if something doesn't really happen that I was expecting, maybe it's something like not, like, oh, whatever it might be. Like even if it's something that at first blush looks like it's a negative, I'm always like,
you. Yeah,
what's the positive here? Like there's an opportunity here. And I also think about connecting with people like an energy. I feel like and that's why I kind of part of why I started the Connect podcast. I feel like if you radiate your energy, you're going to connect with
yeah,
people that are kind of receptive to what you're putting out. Those are the people that you need to connect with. And then those are the people that you're going to create with. And once you radiate, you connect. Once you connect with people, you create. When you create, you manifest. That's kind of I was just thinking about this just this week. I wrote these words down in an order: radiate, connect, create, and manifest. So it's like you and I have
yeah,
connected.
yeah,
Now, we've talked about ideas and projects and things to do and whatnot. And I feel like no matter what you want to call it, everybody can improve their life in some way by connecting more in the way I just described.
I 100% agree. I've always felt that everyone does have the ability. I mean, what we're all here together, and I've always believed in, for lack of better words, energies, and putting stuff out there, the path of least resistance. I never really called it manifestation or understood manifestation, but I definitely believe that that is a thing, and that it, whether it's, some people, dismiss it because they think you're saying like magic, like, oh, I'm just going to say it and it's going to magically poof in front of me. And it's like, no, it's just about the energy you're putting out there. And like you said, it's once you start thinking it, you start acting in ways that make that thing happen, that lead you to the right people or places. It's just how your brain
I'm a
works.
good example. Like I don't believe that like when you're born, there's a little manifesto next to your crib that just says your whole life story from, birth
Totally.
to death.
Hmm.
I'm a good example. I mean, if you, there's the last 10 years for me have been crazy. I mean,
Yeah.
I was just kind of a routine lawyer, um, doing my law thing. And the last 10 years, there've been all these great, interesting side road trips where, I started the Case File Chicago TV show, and then, that launched. We did a Murder in the Park documentary, and then it led to me representing wrongfully convicted people and Starved Rock murders and podcasts, and like all this came about through opportunities that I created, and then, just people I was interacting with that kind of came my way.
Yeah.
And so, I mean, at my age, and I'm 62,
Mhm.
I've never been more excited and more kind of passionate and feel like I'm just getting more. I feel like I'm just now understanding how this works and just kind of really tapping into it now. Like, man, I wish I would have kind of had this a little more figured out in my 30s,
Yeah. If
So
we
I
could
really
only go back.
I believe the power of, like I said, the connections, the energy, whatever you
Yeah.
want to call it, you
Yeah.
know?
Yeah, to me it is. It's whatever you want to call it, because I think we don't know everything. And even like I said, if we have names for it, or we think we know, like, if it's a spirit guide, if it's an angel, if it's a past life us, like who knows, or if it's just us, it's all intermingled. And I do believe we all have intuition. I mean, even if you want to break it down on a scientific level, I think intuition is the thing that makes us survive. That's those instincts, like when danger is near. I believe that. So why would that stop at just a physical thing? We all are connected. So your intuition and the energy that connects all of us has to be out there, not just based on the tangible or the things that we can see. You have to have your mind open to other ways of connecting with
And I
people. And
think about this, I mean, when you think of how powerful and complicated the brain is,
yeah, exactly.
and what always just made sense to me was there's no way we know everything.
Mhm.
And so I'm open to uh, that there's a lot of things we don't necessarily know. Like, can you imagine how incredibly frustrated you'd be if you were to die, your spirit goes to, let's say, heaven or wherever it goes, and then you're told, well, if you'd just tapped into your energy this way, you literally could have manifested anything you
Yeah.
wanted. I mean, literally, and they kind of show you like, yeah, I mean, that's how anybody is doing. And then you're like, oh my God,
Yeah.
can I go back? And then
Yeah.
maybe you do go back, I mean, maybe,
That's what, yeah.
I
That's
mean,
what,
my father-in-law always said that he kind of felt like the people today that are kind of the real trendsetters in terms of technologies and inventions kind of are tapping into the ability, like it's all already happened, but they can kind of they kind of tap into that, and they have the ability to kind of tap into resources and experiences that help them create the things they're creating. Like it's all already been done, but they
mhm.
can just, tap into that more and they bring more to the table that way. It's an interesting way to think about it.
Yeah. No, totally. And when you said that, it made me think of like, I don't know why I have this North Star, this mental space that I keep trying to get back to. Um, God, it was probably a few years after I moved to LA, and things were rough. I was younger, and nothing was steady, but I came out here to make my dreams happen. I didn't have a car at the time, so I was on the bus, and I don't know what came over me, Andy, but this feeling, I tell people this story every now and then because I'm just like, man, I just want to get back there. It was this overwhelming feeling of that. of that just belief and understanding. I was like, I can make my life whatever I want it. And nothing is I don't even remember what my thoughts were. It was just very like I just felt very clear, and not just clear but joyous and hopeful, and it all came at me at once. Just from like I got on the bus, I was heading to work, and all of a sudden this like overwhelming feeling of like
Yeah.
I can make everything the way I want it, and I felt so happy and so content and so eager, and it all like it was like a drug. It like came on like out of nowhere, and I've to this day I'm still trying to chase that feeling
Well,
again.
you just gave me goosebumps. I know exactly what you're talking about, and I get that occasionally too.
Mm,
And what I try to do is I try to, in that moment, really, really let it breathe and let it sink in.
mm,
And then I'll try to create that moment again. And I mean, like, so I've been on this health kick,
mhm,
and part of this program, they require you to walk an hour a day.
mm,
And what they say is like you spend like the first 5 or 10 minutes on gratitude, um, which I do. And then uh, if you listen to my episode with Julia Martin, who's kind of this manifestation coach, she was amazing. She goes through like whatever your goals are, okay? You list kind of like all the things you want. And then she goes through like let's list all the reasons why you think it can't happen.
mm.
She reframes those as like reframes into like affirmations. And so on my walk, I also say all those. But there are times, not always, but there's times on that walk where I feel like I am floating. I
Yeah,
feel it's so clear to me, like I really feel like I can have what I want,
yeah,
do what I want. It's all crystal clear to me. I feel powerful.
yeah,
And that is a feeling that I think is out there,
yeah.
that
I
it's
think
when
it's
we're in that state, we are in such a powerful state.
yeah.
So I get what you're saying, and then you
Yeah.
can get that again.
Yeah, I know I can. It
You just
has
gotta be open to it, and
I've had little tidbits of it, but nothing like that yet. Where I think, and to bring me to my well, the next point that I was going to make based off of what you said, I think the reason I'm not there is why most people in our society don't get there is because we are so clouded every day with, whether it's just a normal grind, like you were saying, like your typical Chicago worker or anybody in the world. We're also bombarded by logic and what's in front of us and what's tangible, and that's all we have. And we're surviving. Economy's bad. Like, who's got time to think about dreams? And but the more that we're clouded by that, and the more we break away from instinct, like we're saying, our intuition, and we keep separating, that hopefulness or that intuition because we're so grounded, for lack of better words, grounded in the bad way of just being like never taking our feet off the ground because we're just so busy and we're so scared, or we're so work and unfortunately we are lucky enough that we live in a country where even if times are tough, like we have food, we have a home over our head. Some people don't have that luxury, so but I think if you do have that luxury and you have time that you can set aside in your day to do the walks like you're doing, or to just appreciate, or just be not afraid to dream, like you can feel that.
well, here's a good one. I mean, one of the, I would really encourage you and anybody to check out Julia Martin's podcast, Dream Your Life podcast. So one of the reframes, like, so I told her some of the things like, what do you want? First of all, you first have to define it, because if you don't know what you want, if you're just kind of on the default mode, on autopilot going through life, that's what you're going to get. Like if you don't even know what you want, why are you expecting something
Yeah.
particular to happen? So once you go through, and I said all the things, this is what I want. So then she goes, all right, let's list every reason why you think, like, what's the resistance? Why is this not, going to work? So one of them, look at the email she sent me. One of them was, I said, it's not realistic for me.
Mhm.
And the way she reframed that was, I don't have any limits. There's nothing holding me back.
Mm.
So when I take this walk, I'll first say like the old way, I'm like, not realistic for me. I said, and I say to myself, and I actually say this out loud when I'm walking. You know, if you see me walking, you either think I have earphones on or I'm talking to myself because I'm talking to myself. And I'm like, not realistic for me. I don't
Yeah,
have
well,
any
I
limits.
get
There's
that.
nothing holding me back. And what I say it this way, right now, today, I'm not maxed out. This isn't the best I can do. This
Mm,
isn't the most abundant I can be. It's not like they said, "Oh, Andy, you're maxed out. You're at your abundance limit.
right.
That's it." That really resonated with me. That concept, no, I'm not maxed out.
Yeah,
I can literally do whatever I want. There's so much more.
yeah,
And so I think you just gotta get in that vibe more often. What happens is most people go through, most of their day doing the stuff they've got to do. They're working, they're making meals, they're done, and you got to block out time to get in this mental space and to get there and go there and visualize and think it. And then you don't have to be there, it's like it's not with you all the time. It might be a 5 minute feeling, you know. But if you can like every day cultivate a little bit of that, it's a burning energy inside you that can really create opportunities for you. And I know exactly what you're saying, that feeling you had on the
yeah.
bus. I
Yeah,
mean,
it was
when you feel it, sometimes like I'll feel like inside, like this wave of like
yeah,
a positive vibe just flows through my body. I'm like, oh my gosh, it just feels
yeah.
amazing.
I think it was really that real. I guess maybe I've been able to tap into it a little bit. I guess the reason it hasn't felt as amazing is because I have the belief now. But I think what made it so special in that moment was that it was like it really dawned on me and really clicked in that I could make my life the way I wanted it. That it wasn't about, fate, or it wasn't about, what's realistic, what isn't. It was like that actual belief, not just
Yeah.
saying it. It was like the belief actually clicked into my soul and was like, oh no, things aren't that hard. Like, yes, life is hard. It's not to say, because,
No,
I
I
think
agree with you. It's not supposed to be. It's
people
supposed
turn
to be
away.
easy.
Yeah, people turn away from that idea too, because they think you're saying like, oh, just be positive, and it's like, no, we're not saying that. Things are hard, yes, but things aren't too hard that you can't do them. It's like that saying, you could do hard things, because it's that idea of like, no, just do it. It's not far-fetched, it's not
No,
crazy, it's not out of your realm,
yeah.
it's just not.
I think the other thing Julia really hammered home was you got to surrender the how. Okay.
Mhm.
So let's say you just, your dream is I want to have my own bakery. Okay.
Yeah.
I want to have a bakery on Melrose Street, Bakes by Dawn. It's a brick and mortar store. And I got this popular LA bakery. I got a huge online sales. You surrender the how. You
Hmm.
don't try to figure out, okay, well, how much money is that going to take? How's
Right.
it going to happen? You just got to, if that's what you want, now write out all the reasons why you think you can't do it. Oh, I don't have enough money. I'm
Mhm.
not good enough. There's so many people baking. How can I be noticed? Um, write those out and then reframe them.
Yeah.
And then every day, say those reframes. Picture you being in that store, walking in that store. Um, but I think these reframes are important because I would think about the things I wanted, but subliminally or, subconsciously, I'm thinking, oh, well, I don't have the resources to do that. It's not realistic for me. I don't have that much money. And
Mhm.
once you reframe it and you
Yeah.
start to say it to yourself, you realize, wait a minute,
Yeah.
this is realistic for me. Like one of
Yeah.
the things she said, I'm looking at another one. I said to her, I said, I don't have the ability to generate that kind of wealth, was one of the things I told her as
Hmm.
resistance. And she said, um, you have all the resources you need right now to generate the wealth and abundance you desire.
Yeah.
You have all those resources right now. That I
Yeah,
thought
you
about
have
it.
them right
Yeah,
here. Yeah. Yeah.
I've got all the resources I need
Yeah.
right now to
Yeah.
do the things I want to do.
Do you
And
know what I
so,
think? Oh, sorry, go ahead.
no, I was just going to say, I think this whole process, and we've been kind of talking about a lot of different concepts here, but
Yeah.
my main takeaway to people is you can create opportunities for yourself. You can create a life that you want. Um, and you have to use your mind and your energy to do it, but it can be done.
Yeah. To piggyback off of that, because I kind of was going to say something similar, is that I think a lot of blocks that people have and that I used to have before I moved here was, um, yes, dream, because people say dream big, don't be afraid. But I think they also don't give credit to or give enough time to those little baby steps that get you there. So, for instance, like let's say when I first moved to LA, I wanted to be an actor, but I also wanted to sing. And so in my head, in my 20s, of course, that meant I want to be a star. I want to be a rock star. But if I didn't take like time to celebrate, doing an open mic, okay, maybe that's how I do it. Like that's how you start the manifestation or how you see the manifestation grow. Like, yeah, maybe you aren't going to manifest it and someone's going to hand you a record deal tomorrow, but it's how do you make, like, it's not so much about, oh, I want to be a rock star. It's I had to call myself. I had a friend who told me this, actually, say stop, just say you're a singer. I was like, oh, okay, you're right. Like, so I'm a singer. Don't just say, oh, one day I want to be this. Just say, like, you are now a singer. So you tell people you are a singer.
You
I'm
know
a
what I
baker. I
say?
tell people I'm a baker. I'm a writer. You have to just
This,
and take
this,
advantage of those small moments where you get to shine in that.
I agree 100%. And the way I say it is this. You have to create. So I'm constantly like, when I get into work in the morning, I first, did you ever watch the movie Stranger Things, the
Oh
show?
yeah, of course, of
Right.
course.
Episode 1, scene 1, Hopper comes into work and like his secretary has already got like a bunch of messages she wants to give him. He's like, no, 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 no.
Oh
I got a
yeah,
mug in the other room. I'm not going to go get it. I've already gone and got some else. Mornings are for coffee and contemplation.
yeah,
Coffee
yeah.
and contemplation. I'll get a little notepad out there and I'll kind of write some things I want to do today. But I'll always write on there, create, create,
Hmm.
create. And another thing Julie is big on is take inspired action.
Yeah,
Inspired action is so powerful. But what I wanted to say to you is if you're a baker, bake. If
yeah,
you're an artist, paint. If you're a musician, write a song. If you're a screenwriter, write something. Like it doesn't, I mean, all those little baby steps
yeah.
lead to something bigger. It's like a chain of events. So, let's just say you want to make films. So you start out and you did a little 5-minute film filming, your next door neighbor cutting his grass and, a story about him. And then that leads to something else, but leads to something else. But like a lot of people just wait
Right.
to get like the big,
But
big break.
that's what I mean. I think the problem is they wait, or they don't appreciate that moment too. Like you don't even
Yeah,
have to look at the
create.
you don't have to look at the little film you made as, okay, this is a step to the next thing. Like be like, no, you're a filmmaker now. You did it. You
Be
made a film.
right. Enjoy the
You don't
moment
have to
right
wait.
now.
Yeah.
No, I mean,
Yeah, but we're so
create.
taught that there's like a bigger thing, or like there's a goal, or
Yeah.
you got to keep, and yes, that is there. We want to work towards, we always want to keep working towards something, but I think what we're missing is that being and enjoying in the now, calling myself, yes, I don't have a bakery now, but I'm calling myself a baker now because I bake. You know what I mean? I don't
Yeah.
have to have a
Yeah.
bakery to bake. I don't
And
have to have, yeah.
no,
So
I
it's,
mean, and do what you enjoy doing. If you
yeah.
create whatever it is, Cynthia gave me that Rick Rubin book, which is really good. He
Oh,
talks
right. Yeah,
a
I
lot
heard about that. I should
about
read.
creating. How we're all artists. We all just, we're put on this earth. What people forget, we're not here to consume, we're here to create,
Yes,
you
yes.
know? And so we all have things we can create. And I've been trying to, you and I talking about social media. I think sometimes I fall into the exact trap I'm preaching against. I don't record enough videos because I'm waiting for like the perfect idea or the perfect one instead of just saying, just put stuff out there, man.
Mhm.
Every day, just create something. Yeah, here I am, and I'm doing this, I'm doing that. Just start creating, and that creative process, let it flow.
Yeah.
And so
Isn't that
I'm
funny
trying to
too
get
that
better at that myself.
isn't that funny that that's how social media has become too? It's kind of like that microcosm of what we're talking about. It used to be that. It was supposed to be for impromptu things, but it's become something else that now people are like that. They're too into curating and they're too into trying to sell, and it's become much like people. Like we used to be free and used to just share our ideas and thoughts, and now we're thinking too much about it and we're,
Yeah.
not doing it.
I'd love to have like I could see having a business. It'd be like a franchise called like the Creation Lab. And
Yeah.
basically it's a place where you'd have teachers for kids.
Mhm.
Like I think kids need to learn at an early age, hey man, create,
Yeah.
do things, just kind of get people in that mindset that like, hey, what do you want to do?
Yeah.
What do you want to do? And so uh I'm big into I'm big into using that phrase, create,
Mhm.
create. And it's kind of like what we did with my partner Sean Reck when we made A Murder in the Park. We never made a documentary movie. Are you
Yeah.
kidding me? We had no idea how to do it. We didn't know, we weren't worried about like, are we going to be able to sell it? Are we be able to get it on TV? The story was so compelling.
Yeah.
We wanted to tell the story of L. Story Simon that we filmed it and we made it. And you know what? Once we had it done, it was so compelling that we got the top documentary film agents in New York to rep us. They
Right.
sold it to Showtime. It was on Netflix. I mean, it's like
Yeah.
I
I
wasn't
watched
worried
it.
about the
It's great.
how. We just created, we did the storytelling, you know?
Yeah.
Um, and then that led to so many other opportunities for me where it all starts, you have to just jump in the water, you
Yeah.
know?
Yeah.
So I think this has really been a good, I mean, I could talk for hours with you about this. So I
Yeah,
think
no,
this is,
yeah.
I think we should have a part 2 down the road.
Yeah, for sure.
I would love for you to do a follow-up session with Jessica, maybe after the new year,
Mhm.
kind of check in with her, see where you're at. Think about with your baking business,
Mhm.
make a list of all those reasons, like the little pieces of resistance of why in your subconscious you think it's not realistic for you. Like, I don't have the money, I don't have the
Well, I
talent,
do
I
think
don't
it's
have
realistic for me. Maybe I have to pick something else because I'm
and
pretty set on the baking.
no, I'm saying, but like, and maybe you don't even have these little pieces of resistance. That's even
Yeah.
better. I
Well,
mean,
yeah. I'm not perfect. I definitely have some. It might not be the baking, but I'll think about it. There's always
but I
something that.
think once you reframe those and
Mhm.
start saying those, and then you start to really feel the feeling of like, yeah, you know what? There's no reason. I've eliminated all the resistance to me having what I want.
Yeah.
And then when you realize it's kind of there waiting for you, that energy kind of gets inside you. And then that's when I think the magic happens, you know?
Yeah. I
So
agree.
is what I said make sense or do I sound like I'm crazy?
No, I mean it's totally. I agree with everything you're saying. I totally think more people need to just again. It's not about hitching your wagon to one frame of thought, whether it comes to spiritual mediums or spirituality or like intuition or manifestation, but it's just opening yourself to something more than your limitations.
Yeah.
Just to more than traditional ways of thinking or doing what you want to do. I think that's just the biggest takeaway for me in life. Is to just not think you know it all and just to be open and try.
Yeah, I agree with you.
So
Well,
yeah, I agree.
to be continued. I really enjoyed talking to you.
Thank you,
The
Andy.
time just flies by when you're talking about things you enjoy talking about. So thank you everybody for tuning into this episode of Connect. We're going to be back with Dawn sometime early next year. We'll continue talking about our mutual spiritual journey. Till then, as Jessica says, sending you love and light, and we'll talk soon.